Some changes in history knock politely before they enter. This one does not. It rushes into offices, factories, hospitals, classrooms, studios, meeting rooms, and homes. It shows up in software that can write, summarize, design, predict, translate, and answer. It enters the day before most people feel ready. And once it arrives, it does not simply ask us to admire it. It asks us to adapt. That is why this topic feels bigger than one man, one company, or one technology trend. When people hear the name Jensen Huang, they do not just think about a chief executive in a leather jacket. They think about one of the central figures in the AI age. They think about chips, data centers, robotics, software, and the extraordinary acceleration of computing. But beneath all of that is a more human question. What does a person like that see before the rest of the world fully sees it? What does he understand about the future that ordinary workers, students, creators, managers, and business owners need to understand too? That is the real reason this topic matters. Because the future is never only about machines. It is about people trying to keep up with change. It is about fear, opportunity, confusion, pressure, ambition, and survival. It is about the worker who wonders whether skill will still matter. It is about the student who wonders whether the job they are preparing for will still exist. It is about the manager who senses that the old rules are fading. It is about the entrepreneur who knows that standing still is no longer safe. And this is where Jensen Huang becomes important. He is not important only because Nvidia became central to the AI boom. He is important because his language about the future is not passive. He does not speak as though the world will gently drift into a new era. He speaks as though the platform is shifting under our feet. He speaks about infrastructure, applications, reasoning systems, robotics, national capability, and the need for people to learn how to direct and evaluate AI. In other words, he speaks as someone who believes the future is being built now, not later. So this lesson is not only about biography. It is not a simple success story. It is not another polished tribute to a famous billionaire. It is a deeper question. What Jensen Huang understands about the future is not merely that AI will be powerful. Many people know that already. What he seems to understand more clearly than most is that power changes the shape of work, the value of skill, the speed of decision-making, and even the meaning of leadership. He seems to understand that in a world flooded with new tools, the real difference will come from how people think, how fast they learn, how deeply they understand, and how honestly they face reality. And that is where we begin. To understand what Jensen Huang sees in the future, we first need to understand why people listen to him at all. He is not a commentator standing at a safe distance from change. He is one of the people helping create it. Huang founded Nvidia in 1993 and has remained president and chief executive officer since the company began. That fact alone matters. In an industry that moves at brutal speed, very few leaders stay in place long enough to build a company across multiple eras of computing. Yet Huang has led Nvidia from the world of graphics into the world of accelerated computing, and from there into the center of the AI era. That long arc gives him a different kind of credibility. He has not lived through one boom. He has lived through several technology cycles, several moments of doubt, several bets that could have failed, and several shifts in what computers are for. That means when he speaks about what comes next, he is not speaking as someone intoxicated by a single lucky wave. He is speaking as someone who has spent decades trying to see the next one early. And that matters because many people mistake fame for insight. They are not the same thing. Some people become famous after success. Others become influential because they repeatedly recognize where the world is moving. Huang belongs more to the second group. He matters now because AI is no longer a narrow engineering topic. It is a labor topic. It is a business topic. It is an education topic. It is a national strategy topic. It is a human future topic. And Nvidia sits close to the center of that change. There is also something else that gives his perspective weight. He often talks about AI not as a luxury, not as a toy, and not as a feature. He talks about it as infrastructure. He has argued that countries should treat AI more like electricity or roads, something foundational rather than optional. He has also described AI as a stack, or what he called a 5-layer cake, stretching from energy and chips all the way to models and applications. That framing is important because it reveals a mind that does not see the future as one clever app. He sees a system. He sees layers. He sees an ecosystem that will reshape industries, jobs, investment, and national capability. That is why he matters now, not because he can predict every detail. No serious person can, not because every statement he makes will prove correct. No leader gets that privilege. He matters because he is standing at a key intersection of hardware, software, capital, labor, and ambition. And people standing at those intersections often see pressures before everyone else feels them. So when we ask what Jensen Huang understands about the future, we are really asking something bigger. What does a man who has spent decades building the tools behind modern computing believe the next era will demand from all of us? It is easy to look at Nvidia today and imagine inevitability. That is one of the biggest lies success tells after it wins. It makes the path look smoother than it was. But long before Nvidia became central to the AI conversation, it was a company under pressure. Huang has spoken openly about how the memory of near failure stayed with him. Reporting on his leadership has repeatedly noted that Nvidia almost went bankrupt in the late 1990s, and that he still wakes up with concern rather than comfort. That detail matters because it helps explain his tone. He does not speak like a man formed by ease. He speaks like someone shaped by the memory of how fast things can break. This is one of the first things he seems to understand about the future. The future does not reward comfort for very long. A company can be talented and still be wrong. It can be smart and still miss the shift. It can work hard and still move too slowly. Nvidia survived because it did not remain trapped in the wrong identity. It kept moving. It evolved from graphics into broader, accelerated computing. Then, when AI demand exploded, it was no longer standing on the edge of the new era. It was already inside it. That long transformation is part of why Huang's view carries force today. He did not just build a company. He kept changing what that company was for. That is a serious lesson. Many people assume the future belongs to those who begin with the perfect plan. Often it belongs to those who stay awake long enough to revise the plan before it is too late. Jensen Huang did not transform Nvidia only through scale. He transformed it through repeated redefinition. First, graphics mattered. Then accelerated computing mattered. Then AI training mattered. Then reasoning systems, data center infrastructure, and now robotics and physical AI moved into view. At GTC 2025, Huang described AI's progression from perception and computer vision to generative AI, then agentic AI, and then robotics driven by what he called physical AI. That is not the language of a leader trapped in yesterday's victory. That is the language of someone already preparing for the next layer. There is a deeper emotional lesson here too. A lot of people want a future that feels stable. Huang's career suggests something harder. Stability may come less from standing still and more from learning how to keep changing without losing direction. That applies far beyond Nvidia. It applies to careers. It applies to creators. It applies to teachers, marketers, coders, managers, and business owners. If your identity is tied too tightly to one version of your role, then change feels like a threat. But if your identity is tied to learning, judgment, and adaptation, then change becomes difficult without becoming fatal. That may be one of Huang's clearest lessons. The future belongs less to those who protect old labels and more to those who can see through them. A person's calendar often reveals more than their speeches. Anyone can talk about speed, focus, and excellence. The harder question is this: where does a leader actually place time? Here. Huang's style is unusual enough to be worth studying. Fortune reported that Huang said he does not do one-on-one meetings with his many direct reports, explaining that he avoids unnecessary meetings and prioritizes responsiveness over routine check-ins. Business Insider likewise reported that he has around 60 direct reports, works long days, and spends visible time with employees in the cafeteria, describing himself in effect as a custodian of culture. That combination is revealing. Fewer formal private check-ins, more broad visibility, more direct contact with many parts of the company, more emphasis on information flow than on managerial ceremony. What does that suggest about the future? It suggests that he believes speed matters, but not empty speed. He seems to value organizational clarity over managerial theater. In fast-moving environments, too much structure can become its own form of delay. Too many meetings can make a company feel busy while making it less adaptive. Huang's approach appears built around reducing that drag. That does not mean every company should copy him mechanically. It means the principle matters. When the environment changes fast, leaders cannot afford layers of communication that hide reality. They need signals quickly. They need people who can think clearly without waiting to be carefully coached in private. They need teams that understand direction, not teams that depend on endless clarification. His personal intensity also matters here. Reporting has described him as working very long hours, beginning early, remaining mentally engaged almost constantly, and maintaining very high standards. He has also said he wakes up worried and concerned, not proud and confident. That is a striking sentence. It tells us something important. He does not treat success as permission to relax mentally. He treats it as a reason to stay alert. For many people, that sounds exhausting. In some ways, it is, but it also reveals what he seems to understand about the future. The future does not care how successful you were yesterday. It only cares whether you are still paying attention today. There is another layer to this. Huang's visible time with employees in the cafeteria is more than a casual cultural habit. It says that in a company growing at an extraordinary scale, culture cannot be delegated entirely to slogans. Leaders have to keep touching the organization directly. They have to remain legible to the people doing the work. A fast company without culture becomes brittle. A powerful company without shared understanding becomes arrogant. A technical company without human connection becomes cold. So when people ask, how does a CEO spend time? The deeper answer is not only about hours, it is about values. Huang seems to spend time where future pressure is highest. Direction, standards, communication, talent, cultural clarity, strategic shifts, that is not accidental. It reflects a worldview. He appears to believe that leadership is not the art of being comfortably informed. It is the discipline of staying close enough to reality that the company does not drift into self-deception. And in an age of AI, self-deception may become even more dangerous. Because when the tools are powerful, confusion becomes expensive much faster. One of the most useful things about Jensen Huang is that he does not speak about AI only as a seller of AI infrastructure. He also talks about how he uses it personally. That matters because it moves the conversation from abstraction to behavior. In a 2025 CNN interview discussed by Business Insider, Huang said he uses AI literally every day. He explained that he does not rely on only one system. Instead, he asks the same question to multiple AIs, has them compare one another's answers, and then asks for the best combined response. He compared the process to getting multiple medical opinions. He also said he uses AI as a tutor, sometimes beginning with simple explanations and then asking for more advanced ones over time. That is an extraordinarily important clue about the future. He does not treat AI as an oracle. He treats it as a thinking partner that still requires judgment. That difference is everything. A weak user asks AI to think instead of them. A strong user uses AI to widen, challenge, test, and sharpen their own thinking. Huang's method suggests that the future will reward people who know how to interrogate systems, compare outputs, raise the quality of questions, and judge which answer is actually useful. In other words, AI literacy is not passive consumption. It is an active direction. That idea appears again in his public comments about society more broadly. At Davos in 2026, he argued that it is essential to learn how to use AI, how to direct it, manage it, guardrail it, and evaluate it. He also emphasized that AI is unusually accessible, calling it the easiest software to use in history. That combination is powerful. Easy entry but serious responsibility. Low barrier to begin but high value in using it wisely. This tells us something profound about the future of learning. The most valuable people may not be those who memorize the most facts. They may be those who can frame the best questions, pressure test answers, and keep their judgment alive while using powerful tools. That is comforting and challenging at the same time. Comforting, because it means human thought still matters. Challenging, because it means lazy use of AI may quietly weaken the very skill that now matters most. Huang appears to understand that learning itself is changing. If AI can explain a subject at beginner level and then deepen the explanation step by step, then the old excuse, "I do not know where to start," becomes weaker. The future may punish avoidance more quickly because the tools for learning are becoming easier to access. So the lesson is not only use AI. The deeper lesson is this: use AI in a way that makes you sharper, not softer. Use it to accelerate understanding, not to escape effort. Use it to build reasoning, not to replace it. That is not a small distinction. It may decide who becomes stronger in the AI era and who becomes dependent on it. This part is fascinating because it is about more than slides. One of the questions people often ask is, why did Jensen Huang ban the use of PowerPoint? The reporting around this idea varies in how strongly it is framed. Some reports describe him simply as not being a PowerPoint fan, while others go further and suggest that PowerPoint is effectively banned in Nvidia culture. What seems consistent across those accounts is the deeper point. Huang strongly favors whiteboards, live thinking, and real-time explanation over polished slide decks. Yahoo's syndicated report said that many Nvidia conference rooms feature whiteboard walls, and another report on Nvidia's management culture said Huang prefers whiteboards over PowerPoint in business discussions. Whether you call that a formal ban or an aggressive dislike, the lesson is remarkably clear. He does not want people to hide behind polish. That is a very important idea in the AI age, perhaps even more important now than before. We are entering a world where systems can generate beautiful language, elegant slides, polished summaries, attractive graphics, and confident answers very quickly. That creates a dangerous illusion. A person can look prepared without being prepared. They can look intelligent without understanding the material deeply. They can sound certain without actually reasoning through the problem. Whiteboards strip away some of that cover. When you stand in front of a blank surface and explain your thinking in real time, your understanding becomes visible. Weak logic gets exposed. Missing steps appear. Fake clarity collapses. That may be uncomfortable, but discomfort is often where real comprehension begins. This tells us something crucial about what Huang understands about the future. In a world overflowing with generated polish, raw understanding becomes more valuable. That is a serious shift. For many years, professional culture often rewarded presentation quality almost as much as thought quality. The future may become less forgiving. If AI can help almost anyone create polished output, then polish itself becomes less rare. And when a skill becomes less rare, it loses value. What remains valuable is what polish cannot fake for long. First principles understanding, live reasoning, good judgment, and the ability to answer hard follow-up questions without collapsing. This is why the PowerPoint issue is not really about software. It is about truth. Do you understand the thing, or do you merely present it well? Do you know how the system works, or do you know how to make it sound convincing? Do you have an idea, or do you have formatting? That tension will only grow in the years ahead. AI will make pretty output cheaper. That means substance becomes the scarcer asset, and perhaps Huang understands that more clearly than many leaders do. The subject of rewarding employees reveals something deeper about how Huang thinks about talent. In 2026, reporting in India described a one-time Jensen special grant that gave many Nvidia employees in India additional restricted stock units. With vesting spread over time, the details matter less than the message. This was not just a speech about appreciation. It was a clear example of connecting reward to ownership and long-term commitment. That suggests something very important. Huang does not appear to think about talent only in terms of salary. He seems to think in terms of alignment. If people help build the future, they should feel connected to the value created by that future. That is a powerful idea because it moves reward out of the short term. It tells people, you are not only here to complete tasks, you are part of a larger build. Ownership changes psychology. It can raise responsibility, patience, and commitment. It can also create pride. But money alone does not explain his view of people. The way he spends time with employees, the way he keeps broad contact across the organization, and the way he emphasizes clarity of thought all suggest that he values people who can handle difficulty, stay sharp, and contribute at a high level without needing constant soft protection. Reporting on his public advice to students has highlighted his intense focus on resilience, even his provocative line that he wished them ample doses of pain and suffering, because character is formed through adversity, not comfort. That language is severe. Some people dislike it. That is understandable. But whether one agrees with his wording or not, the principle underneath it is recognizable. He seems to value people who can endure pressure without losing structure. People who can survive embarrassment, difficulty, and repeated challenge without breaking their inner frame. People who do not collapse the first time reality disappoints them. That matters for the future because AI will not only reward technical ability, it will also expose emotional weakness. People will have to relearn, roles will shift, old status markers may weaken. Parts of one's identity may need rebuilding. Under those conditions, resilience is not motivational decoration. It is survival equipment. So how does Jensen Huang reward great employees? Partly with ownership, yes. But more deeply, he seems to reward them with responsibility, proximity to hard problems, and a place inside a company that expects seriousness. And that tells us something larger. The future may increasingly reward people who can think clearly, move quickly, learn constantly, and remain emotionally steady while the ground keeps moving. Now we reach the heart of the subject. What does he understand about the future? First, he appears to understand that AI is not a single product category. It is a full-stack transformation. At Davos, he described AI as a 5-layer system spanning energy, chips and computing infrastructure, cloud data centers, models, and applications. That is one of the clearest and most useful ways to think about what is happening. It means the AI era is not only about clever chatbots. It is about power generation, construction, networking, manufacturing, cloud operations, software, and industry-specific tools. Second, he appears to understand that AI changes tasks before it changes purpose. This may be his most important idea. At Davos, Huang argued that AI is likely to automate parts of work without necessarily destroying the larger purpose of work. He used radiology and nursing as examples. In his view, if AI reduces the time spent on scanning, charting, transcription, or other administrative tasks, professionals can spend more time on diagnosis, patients, care, and higher-value work. He framed the question this way: not what task are you doing, but what is the purpose of your job? That is a profound shift in perspective. Most people panic when they see a task becoming automated. Huang's framework pushes us to ask a harder but more useful question. Was that task the core of the job or merely one component of it? If it was only one component, then the future may not remove the role as quickly as people fear. It may reorganize the role around higher value contribution. Third, he seems to understand that AI will create new demand across the economy, not only inside software firms. At Davos, he pointed to demand for plumbers, electricians, construction workers, steel workers, technicians, cloud operators, application builders, and many other roles tied to the build-out of AI infrastructure. That matters because many people still imagine AI as something that only affects coders and office workers. Huang's framing is wider. He sees an ecosystem, not a niche. Fourth, he understands that AI literacy will become basic, not optional. He has said that people need to learn how to direct AI, manage it, guardrail it, and evaluate it. He has also argued that the programming language is becoming the human language itself, even saying that everybody in the world is now a programmer in that sense. Whether one takes that literally or not, the strategic meaning is clear. The future will favor people who know how to communicate with intelligent systems effectively. Fifth, he seems to understand that the next major wave goes beyond text and images. At GTC 2025, Huang described AI's movement from perception to generative AI, then to agentic AI, and then to robotics driven by physical AI. He argued that the next wave is already happening. That is not a minor claim. It means the future he sees is not limited to digital assistants. It includes machines that can interact with the physical world, simulate experience, learn through synthetic data, and operate with growing autonomy. Sixth, he seems to understand that nations, not only companies, are now in the game. His comments about sovereign AI make this clear. He has urged countries to build AI capabilities rooted in their own language, culture, data, and priorities. That means the future of AI is not only corporate, it is geopolitical, educational, economic, and cultural. When you put all of that together, the picture becomes clearer. Huang appears to understand that the future will not be shaped by one model, one device, or one app. It will be shaped by infrastructure, energy, national strategy, organizational speed, AI literacy, physical systems, and the human ability to keep moving from task-based work toward purpose-based work. That is a demanding vision. It does not flatter people who want the old world to stay the same. But it is also not a hopeless vision, because inside it is a message that many people miss. The future still needs human beings. It needs better ones, more adaptive ones, more responsible ones, more literate ones, more resilient ones, more honest thinkers, more people who can work with AI without surrendering judgment to it. That may be the deepest thing Jensen Huang understands. The future is not only about stronger machines, it is also about stronger humans. So what should we take from all of this? Not worship, not fear, not blind imitation. The real lesson is sharper than that. Jensen Huang seems to understand that the future belongs to people who do not confuse comfort with safety. He seems to understand that change punishes denial first. He seems to understand that tools get cheaper, polish gets easier, and appearance becomes less trustworthy. Under those conditions, deep understanding rises in value, judgment rises in value, clear thinking rises in value, real learning rises in value, human resilience rises in value. That is not only a lesson for billionaires, it is a lesson for everybody. For the student, it means do not build your future only on memorization. Build it on learning agility. For the worker, it means do not define your value too narrowly. Ask what larger purpose your role serves. For the manager, it means do not hide behind the process when speed and clarity are required. For the creator, it means do not rely on surface polish when machines can now generate surface polish by the ton. For the entrepreneur, it means do not marry your first identity too tightly. The market may ask you to become something bigger or something different. For all of us, it means this. The future will not wait for our emotions to settle before it moves. We have to move while we are still uncomfortable. That may be the hardest truth in this whole conversation. Most people want certainty before action. But the future often rewards people who act while the picture is still incomplete. They learn, they adjust, they revise, they stay awake. They do not need perfect calm before they begin. And maybe that is why Huang's story has force beyond business headlines. It is not just the story of a company that became powerful. It is the story of a mindset that stayed alert through multiple eras of change. A mindset that did not assume yesterday's model would carry tomorrow's world. A mindset that values resilience over fragility, substance over polish, learning over ego, and adaptation over nostalgia. That is why this topic matters. Because sooner or later, every one of us will face some version of the same question. Will I cling to an older shape of the world because it feels familiar, Or will I learn fast enough to remain useful inside the next one? That question is not theoretical anymore. It is already here. And if Jensen Huang understands anything clearly about the future, it may be this. The people who thrive will not necessarily be the ones who shout the loudest about innovation. They will be the ones who learn to think clearly while the world is changing, who stay close to reality, who use new tools without becoming mentally lazy, and who keep building when others are still arguing about whether change is real. So do not leave this topic only with admiration for one man. Leave it with a decision. Learn faster, think deeper, ask better questions. Strengthen what machines cannot cheaply imitate. Do not hide behind polish. Do not wait for perfect certainty. And when the future starts arriving faster than you expected, do not stand still and call it unfair. Meet it. That may be the most practical, most demanding, and most human lesson inside everything Jensen Huang seems to understand about the future. If this lesson helped you today, please subscribe to Mona English Café and turn on the bell so you never miss your daily English dose. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like so I know you want more lessons like this, and leave a comment below telling me what English topic, real-life situation, or speaking struggle you want Mona to talk about next. Your idea could become the next video. Keep going, keep practicing, and remember, your English can grow step by step. See you in the next lesson.